Ah, Carl, I am glad you stopped by. I was just reading your paper on the place of religion in society, and I admit that I am disturbed by it.
Professor Socrates, you must be thinking about how I see religion as the most prominent vehicle for instilling a false consciousness, acting even as a kind of opiate that dulls our awareness of class exploitation. The rich believe they are offered a present sign of God's favor, and the poor are told to believe that by enduring present misery they will be compensated in the afterlife.
And you of course do not believe in an afterlife, I understand. You are the complete materialist, so when we die that is the end of the story.
But not the end of history itself, Professor. As an individual with the advantages of a superior education, I have a responsibility to provide leadership in the forward march to a classless society. You are from a past generation of philosophers content to observe the world. I am from a new generation that must act to change it.
Carl, you remind me of another of my students, Mr. Plato. He has the same ambitions, and I have attempted to advise him. Change, however, can come only if either our rulers become philosophers, which is not very likely, or philosophers become the rulers.
Something perhaps far less likely, sir. But I understand from your conversations that you and I may have a lot in common when it comes to religion as we know it. You are, I understand, being charged with the crime of atheism. You do not accept the traditional gods of your country, so in effect you do not accept the country itself.
Yes. These malicious claims may yet lead to my death, I'm afraid. All I have done is point out the errors in our mythology when we have our gods quarreling and scheming like the characters in that TV show, Dynasty. However, unlike yourself, I do believe in the supernatural, and in a way, then, all of us are divine to the extent our souls are immortal. What matters is how we care for the soul, and that means attempting to live with all parts of our nature, our minds and our emotions, in balance. What follows is that in an ideal society there will be that same balance, with those whose minds are fully developed ruling over those who have not yet achieved this.
I see. But is not the case then that you accept that some human beings are just better than others?
That is true enough. Just as in the world around we find genetic differences that mark some members of a species as more fit than others.
But, Professor, we are talking about human beings who have the same desires for personal fulfillment. That is the basis of our democratic structure, this belief in our essential equality.
Carl, when did you become such a friend of democracy? I thought you favored a world with no organized government at all, a communist utopia.
That is true. We are already seeing how in an industrialized world social classes are being reduced to those who have the wealth and run the system, and those who must struggle for existence at whatever job they can get. However, as our machinery improves, there will be less need for labor, higher unemployment, and a rebellion of the working class that will lead to a world free of exploitation. Since government exists primarily to protect the interests of those who own and control the means of production, in a classless society where all such property is held in common, it will no longer be needed.
And do you really think, my young friend, that our human passions are so easily subdued? Why should someone be content to have just the same lifestyle as everyone else? I can imagine how in your marvelous world those who are in management positions will be corrupted by that power itself, and so take advantage of their status.
And I would like to believe otherwise. We will have a culture in which our youth will be raised with a new set of ideals free of all capitalist ideologies, especially religion.
Ah, but then do you not see that you are making your communist philosophy itself a religion? That is not a criticism, understand. In my own ideal society, philosopher kings must necessarily deceive those whom they rule, and so I advocate using the tools of religion to inculcate a new mythology that allows those less intellectually gifted to accept their status more readily.
I have heard about your infamous myth of the metals. Common folk are led to believe that they have cheap iron and copper in their veins, while your so-called guardians have gold and silver flowing in their blood. Even in the arranged marriages of your guardians, these individuals are led to believe it is all a lottery, so that it's just a coincidence that the best males are mated with the most desirable females. You call that a royal lie, I believe.
It is for their own good. Only those who understand the truth about human nature can appreciate this.
Professor Socrates, much as I respect you, I must disagree with your assessment of human nature. Remove the evil of a capitalist system and we will see that human beings are basically cooperative and willing to work for the common good. They just need the encouragement that will come with proper indoctrination. This may have some similarities to what happens with an organized religion, but it is based on science and not superstition.
Ah, Carl, you are too much the optimist, I think. Your approach makes sense if genetic characteristics can be so easily manipulated so that something learned can be inherited. But I think Mr. Charles Darwin may be correct in that the basis for genetic change is deeper. We humans are just as likely to be led by our passions in your proposed system as in mine. Only I take this into account so that those who are confirmed as beyond passion will be in charge.
You're hypothetical philosopher kings. But I wonder how you can be so sure about your philosophers. You two are working on an assumption, and it is that we are born with some kind of knowledge built in. I favor the proposition that our minds are blank slates and that knowledge comes only from careful observation and clear reasoning based on an unbiased view of the facts available.
Carl, I see that we definitely have different starting points. I am impressed by the truth of mathematics, which speaks of truths that are not based just on observation but on pure reason. When we call something a triangle, it is because we recognize how it reflects a recovered memory that involves the definition of triangularity. So it is with justice, I say, and for that reason I prefer to believe that the philosopher who has, as it were, remembered what justice is in itself will never act unjustly and so can be entrusted with complete power.
Professor Socrates, we are both optimists then, only I would like to think that it is not just a rare few individuals who can transcend raw self-interest. We will have to see if history proves me right. Heaven help us if we are both wrong.